you don't walk around the building with blindfolds on, you can kind of see what's happening as far as how many reps you're getting, who's going in before you, and there's no starters. Every position's open. They say what they want to say, but we all know who's going to play on Sunday.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Defining Success with Matt Foster. I have the amazing, talented Erik Harris here with me today. I was on a call with him maybe about a month ago or so, and I just got to hear a piece of his story, extremely gripping. A lot of you guys can relate to this, where you have dreams and visions of what your life could be and always feeling like it's a little bit beyond you. Erik has been a testament of, even if it seems beyond you, what you could do to push through to get it. So, Erik, I appreciate you coming on today, man.
Matt, I appreciate you having me, man. It's an honor, honestly.
Yeah. We'll jump right into it, man. I know I could probably just start it off in the beginning and let you just roll for the next 45 minutes, and we would all enjoy that. But I'm gonna jump right to the middle of your story. I think this is a really key period. 2012, you go undrafted. You took 2 semesters off at Kalu just to be prepared for that, physically train, mentally be as ready as you could be, not waste the opportunity, right? And you go undrafted. So now, with recommendation from your mom, you get hired at Utz Potato Chip Factory for the worst job, the corn mixer. You decide that, hey, you know what? It's the worst job, but I'm going to do it. But what's going through your mind at that time, man? Like, it's the dream, and now you're standing above a 600-degree mixer for an 11-hour shift with your jeans on, right? Like, you're looking down. What's some of the kind of reverberations going on inside you? Did you still have the dream alive, or was it really a lot of like disappointment and kind of anger working through, like, man, like, why didn't this work out at this point for me?
Yeah, honestly, at the moment and in the time, it was for me, it was more embrace it,
Okay.
embrace this feeling, embrace the feeling of this is not what you want to do. And also it made me have empathy for my mom and what she was going through. I mean, she was
Mm-hmm.
at that factory for 15, 17 years at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
taking care of 6 kids. So I was like, wow, this is what she goes through, and this is not what I want to go through every day, to provide for my family. She was there for all of our sporting events and still working night shifts and stuff like that. So for me, it was just kind of embrace the moment and don't quit. Uh, I knew later on in life I'd be able to share this story as far as whether I shared it with my kids or have this platform. Not really, that was a goal, but not thinking, hey, I'm gonna be in the NFL one day and I'll share this story. It was more of a, hey, this story will pay off one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, hey, what better of a story to start from here? And actually, even for God to give you a little bit of perspective, right? Like you said, I think you've said before in interviews that your mom didn't miss a game, she didn't miss a doctor's appointment, she held it down, and now you got to see a little bit into her world, and you're like, man, how did you keep that attitude, keep that perseverance, and then also, when you look on the other side of it, any workout, any trials, anything else when it comes to football is almost in some ways a lesser pain than standing above those 600-degree mixers. Like, if that was going to be it for you, right? So,
Yeah,
so you were embracing that. Hey, no matter where my life goes, I'm still going for something. This is just another low point in some ways. Like, this is another like starting spot. Like, hey, I got to make some money, so we're going forward from here.
absolutely. I think in life in general, you go through these seasons, and honestly, I'm not sure if anybody ever gets out of the season of patience and waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm gonna wait on you. That's a big song for me. I love that song because it's
Yeah.
so true. It's like we're, especially in the world today where everything's like instant gratification. You got social media and stuff like that. So we're constantly wanting that instant gratification, but you know, it was a season of waiting and being patient and trusting God, trusting His Word, and just being disciplined in my everyday actions and going to work, coming home, making sure I'm going to the gym and still getting my workout in, and then going home, packing my lunch for the night or the next day, and just it was repeat for the whole summer, and then going back to school, finishing up my degree. But I took what I had learned that summer, and I went into school, and I made dean's list for the first time. So it was taking that I didn't know what he was doing to me as far as my character, as far as just life in general, but he was building a different side of me for the longevity of my life.
And that was another question I have, and not to jump around too much, but going back to high school, you being a multi-sport athlete, was it almost impossible? Was it almost impossible to stay on top of studying at that time, or was it more of an attitude of like, hey, I'm really good at a couple different sports, and it does take a lot of my time and energy to focus on this. I'm gonna let school take a back seat. At that time in your life, like you said, you switched on a different switch and came back to school like, hey, I'm going to learn and handle it. So you had it in you. But in high school, what was the attitude at that time in high school? You're younger, right? So
Yeah, in high school, I think obviously I went D2, but a lot of it would had to do with myself as well, and just not being disciplined in my schoolwork.
hmm
Honestly, meeting my high school sweetheart, now my wife,
yeah.
she really kept me to it. It was more like, hey, like we can't hang out if you're not going to be responsible and do your schoolwork. And I was like, oh,
hmm
I don't want to lose this chick, like, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's good
it
for you,
really
man.
put
Yeah,
things into perspective for me, like, hey, like it's not all about sports, right? I think
yeah.
with sports came natural to me, so I was gravitated towards it more to put more work into it. But as far as school, I'm like, I don't need school. I have sports. And then it was like I talked to all these big school, and they're like, hey, we can't take you. You don't have the
hmm
grades, you don't have the GPA, you don't have the SAT scores. And I was like, oh, like you got to get your act together. So in high school, it was a very humbling experience when everybody was signing their letter of intent to go and say what school they want to play for, and I was still up in the air, like, am I going D1? Am I going D2? Am I going for track? I had more track scholarship offers at the time than I did football. So for me, it really was kind of a very humbling experience, and that's why, after I went through college and then I worked at the potato chip factory, I'm like, okay, I don't want to make this mistake again. I've been here before, so let me get my act together. Let me get my degree so I can
hmm
go and do something.
Yeah, yeah, no, and there's more value placed on it too. It's like, hey, the dream's still alive, but at the end of the day, like finishing college was never a bad idea. Like you're like, hey, I still got to take care of my family, right? So, young Erik, it seems like your whole life kind of like built you to be tough in a good way, man, and take responsibility and really get after it. From being born in LA, right, and then not too long after that, moving to Baltimore, being in Baltimore growing up. So it sounds like you really got into football around third grade. Do you have memories of playing in third grade, of like going through the ranks as you were getting through those grade levels? And did you have a realization like, man, I'm a little bit nasty with it. Like I got I got something here, or a sense of like greatness, like, hey, because there's that tipping point where it's like, hey, I'm not just playing because I like playing. I'm playing because, man, I'm actually good enough to keep going, and take this as far as I want. When did that realization hit for you?
Yeah, honestly, the whole situation was kind of funny. So we were just going to the grocery store, and across the grocery store was the high school. And my brother's dad was like, "Hey, Chris, my mom." He was like, "Chris, I'm gonna go check it out with Eric real quick." So we went over there just to look at it to see, hey, probably football, all the lights were on and stuff like that. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
drew our attention. So we went over there. Next thing you know, it's football signups. Next thing you know, I'm standing in line waiting to get my physical. I'm about to play football in third grade, tackle football. So
Yeah,
we sign up, do my physical. My mom's like, "This is a terrible idea." He cries all the time. He's not ready. I was a little crybaby when I didn't get my way,
yeah,
little mama's
yeah,
boy. And
yeah.
they signed me up. I was number 53. Had the little
Mhm.
the line down my face mask right here, with my comb over, and I was playing middle linebacker, and that's all I was playing. And I was a thumper. I was it was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
natural.
you
It was
yeah.
natural for me. And I think the biggest thing was what I when I reflect and look back on my childhood was I grew up without a dad, right?
Mhm.
And funny story, and I was just telling my sons this story. I showed up to practice early one day because the older kids would practice at a certain time, the younger kids would be followed, and then the
Mhm.
weeks would flip. So kids weren't getting home late all the time, right? You was flipping schedules. Well, I showed up too early one day, and it was the older kids practicing. the coach was like, "Hey, you can jump in." I was like, "No, I'm okay." So we jump in. We're doing like bull in the ring or something like that. And I was so scared of these big kids that my adrenaline was taking over, and I was actually hitting them harder than I thought I was going to be hitting them. And
Yeah.
they started calling me Whiplash at the time, and
Mhm.
I was getting so much praise. And then my coaches came; they were telling my coaches, and having that male role model be so proud of me, um, really stuck with me. And just getting that praise, getting that what I want to say, being seen. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I can't think of the word right now, but just
Like
being,
yeah,
y-
being celebrated. It's like looking at like a different cup. Like your mom can fill a cup, but dads do play a certain role when it's like
yes,
affirmation, like
yes,
confirmation, like, hey,
that's what I wanted to say.
yeah, you're good.
Yes,
You're good out there, good job, like proud of you, like a sense of like
yeah,
love and amazement with their kids, right?
just
Like
getting
the
that
stuff that you feel with
recognition.
your kids now. Yeah.
Right, and I got that, and I was like, "Okay, I could do this. I love it." You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And I was just like, my whole thing was just hit people hard, and I'll get noticed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be everywhere, hit kids hard, and I'll get noticed. And it just stuck with me. So that was third grade. Fourth grade came around. I was playing the fourth grade, and I remember my mom telling me we're moving to Pennsylvania because she wanted to change her life around. She
Hmm.
wasn't living the best life, hanging around the best people,
Hmm.
good friends, but just not making the right choices, right? So she wanted to move to PA where her her side of the family was at, and it was the best thing that ever happened to our family in general. She gave her life to Christ. We
Hmm.
moved up there. I remember going to practice, telling my friends like, "Hey, this is the last practice I have." So I kind of didn't finish my fourth grade season. Fifth grade up in PA was came around. We bounced around. We lived in a motel. We moved in with my grandfather. We moved into a shelter for a week or two just so we could jump up to Section 8, jump to the top of the line in Section 8 to get approved for government assistance. And then we were living in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania at the time. So all of fifth grade was kind of that transition to getting to where we need to be. And then in sixth grade, we moved to a place called McSherrystown. And that's when I played for the McSherrystown Lions in sixth grade. And I started playing offense then too. And I realized, hey, I can score too.
Hmm.
Not only can I just hit people, but I can also score touchdowns too. So
Yeah, yeah. You got some
just,
speed.
yeah,
You got some lightning under your feet a little bit.
yeah, I was one of the kids. I was always outside knocking on all my friends' doors. Hey, let's go play football. Getting mad
Yeah,
at everybody when they didn't want to play.
yeah. Nice, nice. Was there ever any? Because it's funny how life goes, right? Like you get up to a certain level. Was there ever any funny coincidences of people that played with you in third or fourth grade in Baltimore that ever kind of intertwined in your life later on?
Honestly, I could say no. I
Okay.
haven't really met any of those people, even with all the social media platforms. It's like, hey, we played back in elementary school or whatever. Like, nope,
Yeah.
this never happened.
Yeah, so it's almost a blessing, and I think that's a key example even for the audience right there is that, like you said, your mom knew that she needed to kind of clean up what was going on. That it may not have been the worst situation, but it was also there we go. Sorry, I got some motion lights in here.
Are you good?
It wasn't the worst situation, but she knew. I mean, shoot, you guys had to move almost 100 miles away to really just start fresh. And it's funny how environment does like you go getting connected with God again, and then that being the example for the family, you guys kind of feeling that sense of groundness, her kind of taking on a different responsibility at that time, and then you being, what would your life have been like if you had stayed there, right? So kudos to your
Right.
mom for kind of making the move. Going through high school, I know that you didn't take a track scholarship. Was there a reason that did you just do track because it kind of helped with conditioning more for football than it was that you want like I want to go to a school to do track?
Yeah, no, it was I was a three sport athlete. I did track, I did basketball, I just always stayed busy, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so track was just another thing that I just did in the springtime. So it was football fall, basketball winter, and track in the spring.
So for those track scholarships that you turned down, the reason was that like the football program behind that school wasn't good, or you were really holding out for playing football.
Yeah, I was holding on to the track scholarships because of D1, right? Gotta go D1, gotta go D1. So that was what
Mhm.
was appealing to me. go to D1 school for track, and then I can walk onto the football team just so I can say
Mhm.
I played D1. And for any young kids out there listening right now, like D1 is not everything, right? They'll find you as long as you stick with it. Uh, and work, right? Apply yourself and work and put in the work. Any scout will come find you, right? You
Yeah.
just got to do the right thing. So that would be my word of wisdom for kids listening right now. But yeah, so track was natural for me. I was, one district, got second in state, got third in
Mhm.
state, set our school record with all the long jump. But football was my passion.
Mhm.
Everything kept coming back to football. Do I go to this school for track to play football, or you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I chose to go to Cal, and you know the story. My mom wrote a heartfelt letter to Cal PA to take me on as a preferred walk on because they were
Mhm.
a powerhouse D2 school that was
Mhm.
a state school. So
Yeah.
being in state for me was huge, obviously, because college was financially was out of the books, but staying in state, I could get state help and Pell grants and stuff like that.
Kinda, yeah, and make it work, and it wasn't an easy road from there either. It's like you had to fight for the ability to walk on. They had already ran out of scholarship money, right? So you had to, like,
Yeah.
you had to put money together to make it work, like you said, through whatever means necessary to get to season 2, but or your sophomore year. But basically, at that time too, there was another obstacle that happened. You guys got into a pretty bad car accident, and at that time, it goes back to like each spot in the story. There's these like rocks or obstacles that could have really thrown you off. Talk to me a little bit about the accident. I know Teresa got pretty shaken up, and you were having to be kind of the support for her at that time. And then she's always been the support for you. Did that accident almost throw off football at all, or was it just still like that same faith and drive? Like, nope, this is just another part of the story, and got to figure it out.
Yeah, she's definitely the glue, and we had a good conversation this morning as well. She brings the light out of me all the time,
I love it,
and
man.
so much for she's done so much for me in my life as far as my growth that I'm kind of like I'm the NFL player. I have the platform, so I'm kind of like the skill position, the OBJs, the Justin Jeffersons and stuff like that get all highlights and stuff, but really she's in the trenches all the time doing all the dirty work. So um, it was my freshman year, her senior year of high school, and we were going down to visit friends down at West Virginia University and hang out, and we got into a car accident. She suffered a short-term memory loss. She
Mm.
was having seizures and stuff, so she did studies in Stanford for a week, and it was one of those things where she, unlike me, was a great student, honor roll student, National Society student. She has scholarship, academic scholarship. She was gonna committed to go to Robert Morris to go to a nursing school, which had a really good nursing program. She wanted to be a labor delivery nurse, and it kind of all got wiped away after the car accident.
Mm.
She
Mm.
took a year off. Well, she finished her senior year, but then she took a year off. Um, she tried to come to Cal for a little bit and take classes, and she just got so frustrated and down and depressed because she couldn't remember anything. So she kind of dropped out of Cal and stopped doing that as well. And then she went up to Erie, PA to work, be a dental assistant with her uncle, who's a dentist up that way.
Mhm.
And that's when we found out that we were having twins.
Yeah,
So
no,
ever
you just
ever
keep
since,
it keeps always piling on. So if it's so now we're getting past the accident, and then all of a sudden, how was the feeling of that? Like growing up in a home, like you said, like you've had a stepdad in the picture at some points, but basically being single mom home, she's the real one holding it down, right? A majority of the time. What was that feeling for you, knowing that you were going to be a dad, and then two, being at this point in your journey, like how am I going to take care of them? What's the plan? How did that start kind of changing your perspective about what was going on from there?
yeah. So not having a dad, I never held any ill feelings towards him.
Yeah.
I never was sad about it. If anything, I use it to motivate me.
Hmm.
Still to this day, I watch other dads with their kids and how they interact because for me, I'm always trying to learn. I always try to self reflect, even though sometimes it's hard to have those conversations with yourself. Um, or physically admit them out loud to other people. So I'm always trying to look at how other dads handle situations. And for me, being a provider was my biggest stress and my biggest scare when we said that we were having. It's not that I was having a kid with the person I love, but it was more the
Mhm.
fact that, hey, you got to take care of three people, including yourself.
Mhm.
You just got off a scholarship, and you just learned how to work at UPS and pay your bills, and you had to be a real life adult and not have scholarship money being checks being cut for a scholarship and getting refunds and stuff. I was actually getting paychecks and stuff like that. So I actually started talking to an Air Force recruit because I'm like, I don't, I was going for criminal justice, but I'm like, how long does it take for me to get a job and all this stuff? We got twins on the way, so we're gonna get married. We can move. They'll move us together, keep us together, unless obviously I got deployed or anything. But I knew I was gonna have benefits right away. That's some of the things that you don't really think about. Is like, hey, you gotta have benefits, healthcare, all the things. So that was very eye opening for me.
Because it brought it all right to you. Like you said, you had just stepped into like, all right, cool. I'm getting my paychecks and saving a little bit and paying my bills, but then it pulled you even further into like the adulthood, which is like, hey, insurance and taking
Oh
care.
yeah,
And if she's not working and it's all going to be coming from my income, right? Then then it's on your shoulders, right? So kind
yeah,
of back to I like your mentality though, man. It's always been like kind of a whatever means possible. Like you're not above talking to an Air Force recruiter. It's more about like, hey, my principles and values is I'm not going to be a deadbeat dad. I'm not going to be
right.
someone that doesn't provide or get after it or show an example. And whether that's in football or school or, hey, like I got to pivot at this time and be in the Air Force because that was the right move for my family. Like a lot of respect for you, man. Making choices based on your values, not just on your own selfish desires, because you could have just always brush that off like, hey, I got this dream though. And who knows how things work out, when we don't make decisions off of our values.
Right.
Going forward from college, right? You took those last two semesters off. No draft 2012. You tried out for an arena league. That didn't work out. You had your final shot, right? You're like, hey,
Mhm.
I'm gonna spend this $80. I'm gonna go to Buffalo. Let's see what's up with these Tiger Cats. If it's in the cards, cool. If not, we're moving on and we'll figure out what's
We're in the
next.
Air Force.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. You
Yeah.
already got the recruiter got the letter signed for you, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, so talk to me a little bit about your time in the CFL, getting on the Tiger Leagues, Tiger Cats, getting activated, and a little bit about the difference because I don't think everybody always knows what's the inside of the CFL feel like versus the NFL, right? NFL being the big deal that it
Yeah.
is. But the CFL, what were some of the vibe differences, organization differences, what you felt from management? Because a lot of Canadian people that I've always met have just this like real niceness, like kindness about
Oh
them.
yeah.
So just curious about were they really welcoming to you even more in some ways than the organization that is the NFL a little bit?
For sure. I think it's hard to I mean, I can compare it now, but at the time, I knew what I knew, right? It was still a business, but our little family grew. We had the twins my first year up there, so our family grew. It was
Hmm.
had a lot more time. There's less time consuming
Yeah.
because the CBAs are different, right? I think it's like it could have changed when I was up there. It was like 4.5 to 5 hours. They could only keep you a day.
Hmm.
I feel like in the NFL, you're in the building all day long. Where
Hmm.
there, you were like pretty much 7 o'clock, and you're done at 1 o'clock, and you're pretty much
Yeah.
done for the day. So I had a lot more time with my family to, go do things, go to the park. I wasn't super tired because I wasn't waking up super early and staying super late. So I just had a lot more of myself to give, which is one of the things that people in the NFL they want to see you perform on Sundays, and that's all they care about. They don't see when you're injured and you have to go to the training room, you have to show up earlier than everybody else so you can still make meetings on time and still perform on Sundays, but yeah, go home and be present for your family because they care that you're hurt, but they don't care. You know what I mean? At the
Yeah.
same time,
Yeah.
they still want all of you, right?
The
So
CFL really allowed you. It sounds like it was a beautiful time because when your kids are young, it's that time of like your family's growing, you're
yes,
adjusting to being a family unit. It was almost like a nice transition because it had some freedom to like feed into your family and be the dad that you wanted to be while also like, hey, I'm also still on the dream and getting to play football and
For sure. It's like it's a balance. It's like, everybody always says money isn't everything. So up there, it's like I didn't have a lot of money, but I had a lot of
Mhm.
time. Kind of seemed like we might have been a little happier, you know what I mean? When you have more time. Now you got more
Yeah.
money in the NFL and you got less time. And it's like time is one of those things that you doesn't matter how much money you have, you can't get back. And,
Yeah.
my coach Orlando, who's still up there, the head coach for the Tiger Cats, he just said the most valuable thing you can give to somebody is your time, not
Mhm.
money, not anything else. It's your time because that's something you can't get back, So um, that was that. I think that's the biggest difference as far as being a professional in that league. Obviously
Yeah.
the game's way different, the style of game, the amount of
Sure.
people, the field space, and stuff like that. But it was definitely very family oriented up there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, encourage, and it almost feels like God each step of the way was growing you, man, just watering
Yeah.
you, growing you, giving you enough of a test to like strengthen you up where you needed to, fill the gap, and it kind of take you along. And it's an amazing story because obviously you win, right? You end up getting called up by the Saints. And
Hmm.
then another obstacle, always a new challenge, right? So
Yep.
your ACL got torn, right? And then even though that they waived you at the middle or whatever of the next year, Raiders pretty much picked you up right off the spot. What?
Yeah.
How does that work? Did you already kind of know that they were going to waive you, and then the Raiders were already kind of coming in saying, "Hey, like you really fit this position," or are you having to door knock for yourself a little bit to get that opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that they were going to release me,
Okay,
especially since I was, the week that I did tear my ACL and both my meniscus was a week that I was going to start being in a rotational defense, and they were very high on me. Obviously, there's some politics involved when it comes to contracts and money and stuff like that, and
sure.
um, but I didn't think they were going to cut me, but at the same time, if you don't walk around the building with blindfolds on, you can kind of see what's happening as far as how many reps you're getting, who's going in before you, and
Mhm.
the, there's no starters. Every position's open. They say what they want to say, but we all know who's going to play on Sundays majority of the time. There might be a handful of guys that wow everybody in the preseason that's gonna make the team, but other than that, it's usually business decisions, whether it's cap savings or something like that. But there was a guy who was actually one of my really good friends and a huge believer as well, Chris Banjo, and he's the
Mm.
guy they brought in 2016 to pretty much replace me, to fill in the void where when I got hurt. And then he was just balling out in the preseason. I was like, oh, I know how this is gonna end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Um,
you can feel the momentum in the building, the energy,
yeah,
it's not always said, but it's felt, right? Like
yeah, and I mean, he was having a great preseason, and I was happy for him because he's such a good human being, individual. Family's
you
awesome as
can't even
well.
hate him. Like, yeah, you can't
Yeah,
even
I
hate
was
him.
just
You're like
like,
just a good dude and just killing
the
it. Like,
the
yeah.
messed up part is, you play your game. I can't remember if it probably was like a Friday game. You go on Saturday, so we went in Saturday. Didn't really watch the film, but you go on Saturday, work out, you have your team meeting and stuff. So at the time, I was living like 40 minutes away, so I just drove 40 minutes away, and then I get a phone call. Hey, coach wants to talk to you. I'm like, tell my wife, I'm like, hey, babe, I'm about to go get cut. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, guys said the coach wants to talk to me. I know what that means. Like, I'm about to go get cut, but I'll be back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
We
come
got this.
back or what? Went there, talked to him, talked to Sean Payton. He released me and stuff like that. So I think it was like 2 days coming around after all the waivers clear through the process of
Mhm.
that, and I was at the airport. I was through security at the gate, about to go to Buffalo for a workout. They
Mhm.
wanted to see how I looked in person, wanted to see my knee was okay and all this stuff. And then my agent calls me and says, "Hey, don't get on that plane. I think I have something else." And I'm like, "Okay." So I'm sitting there 45 minutes before my flight, and they call back and say, "Hey, you're going to Oakland to be on the Raiders active roster." I'm like, "I don't have to work out." I'm like, "No, you're going to be on the active roster." Felt like I had to go to security, find my bags that were just about to go on the plane, check through security all over again, call Teresa, be like, hey, she wasn't even home yet. I'm going to Oakland. Her dad lives out there, so that
Okay.
was amazing. So I actually got to live with him for the first 2 years out there. So
Which
huge
kind of
blessing.
made your guys' relationship even stronger. It's like
Yeah.
always the right things kind of working out. What are the chances, right? That he's
Yeah.
out there at that time and then you get called to Oakland at that time, right?
Right. right? And I
Yeah.
actually said that I'm like, I don't care who calls me, but I really don't want to go out to the West Coast because it's too far from home with my family. And then it was
Yeah.
like Oakland. I was like, actually, I never thought of Oakland. Your dad's out there. That's awesome. You know what I mean?
Make it,
So I
yeah,
stay with I
yeah.
stay with him.
Make it work, right? And that was another question I had too. So as you're getting moved around, did you always have a home base, or did you guys have to move for every move? Like when you played for the Raiders the whole time, did you have to bring your family there, or did you guys keep a home base where home base was this whole time for school and all of that? Or like how does that work behind the scenes for the Harris family?
Yeah, honestly, they stayed in Louisiana still. We lived in Louisiana probably 2.5 to 3 years after I was still released from the Saints. So we have great
Okay.
friends in Louisiana.
Yeah.
No longer live there, but we have great friends there. So we stayed in Louisiana, and then we finally chose to move to Florida. But
Yeah. Yeah, I've been
so
I've been I've been seeing the
no,
house. I've been seeing the house getting built,
yeah,
man. All the years and sweat and bled, man, is you're building a legacy compound, man. It looks beautiful,
yeah,
man.
appreciate it, man. It's like you listen to my story, and it feels like you sit there and say like I always got to prove myself, and it's like that's the selfish me, right? But if I
Yeah.
say what is it truly for, it's like no, God's always trying to show his face through my blessings, through my life,
Mm.
through because not everybody can go through what I went through. Some people probably would have folded,
Yeah.
at times of the
Yeah.
adversity. But like you said, like we shared my story, and it's like each season was another layer of armor, to get me to the next step.
Yeah, you got hardened where you need to get hardened. You got
Mm.
watered. You got repaired. Luckily, you met Teresa young enough too, like that she was able to hold you down
Yes.
through a lot of it. Imagine it like meeting her later or not having her in these certain periods of time. It just changes. It changes everything. Going through the NFL, so being on the Raiders, you really had a breakout year. 2018 just came through. Did you feel strong again? Because a lot of times, right after your knee and stuff, it's like a little bit of the confidence on your knee. Did you feel like just the recovery went really well, and then again your armor and your mental
Yeah.
game and your spiritual game that you're just like, hey, I'm still standing, so I'm gonna go get it like I did because you really came out there, and if anybody didn't know, would have thought that you had an injury, right? Or had just been
Right.
through one. So,
Yeah, coming off an injury like that that first year is really like, all right, I'm good to go, but you're constantly like, am I good? You know what I mean? Like, and you're constantly you're just building back that confidence and stuff like that. So, and also you're also working on the explosiveness and stuff like that. So, felt like the year and 2 years after that injury really was like, okay, I'm really good now. Like, I don't think about anything. I'm hitting my prime. I'm faster than I was before my ACL. So it's like
mhm.
that confidence was through the roof, um, with everything, and just surrendering it all and just saying, hey, I'm gonna go out there no matter what, and I'm gonna serve my teammates. And it's not about me going out there to prove anybody wrong. It's about proving myself right and everybody that believed in me. It was just a different level of being free. You see these greats, Troy Polamalu, you look at him play on the field and you're like, gosh, that guy has a green light. He just wherever he wants. When you have that green light, you feel like you're unstoppable, when you have Christ in your life and you feel like you can defeat anything,
Yeah.
life's easier. And it was
Yeah.
easier on the field.
It really is, man. You're always dropping the good lessons. That's why I really wanted to have you on, man. And one point I wanted to touch on when you were talking about the flight story about your agent calling you. I know you printed out the Tiger Cat um, contract at the library, and you're like, "Hey, I don't care what it says on this thing. I'm going to sign it.
Yeah.
Has to be better than the Air Force, right?" So,
Yes.
uh, as far as giving wisdom to the kids coming up behind you, do you recommend, or what's your recommendation on the process for finding an agent or picking the right agent? I understand in that situation is just like yeah, we're just going. It's just a green light, right? But going on from there, of course, you had your agent working for you, opened up the Raiders deal, and then was reviewing contracts for you. How did you find a good agent, and what was your process for like aligning yourself with somebody that you felt had your best interests?
Yeah, the agent process is tricky, I had an agent that I mean, I've gone through a couple of agents and a couple of relationships, and it's like
Yeah.
each. each season was a little different for me and what I needed, right? Sometimes
Mhm.
like, I wasn't a big name, so I started off with like a smaller guy and,
Mhm.
as my career started taking off, I felt like it was better for me to get somebody that had more connections because my thing was connections and who you know are everything. So just get me in the building and I'll do the rest.
Yeah.
That's always been my mindset.
Give me the opportunity. You needed someone that, like, even if you have to pay a little bit more, like, at least gives you the opportunity, because if you don't get the opportunity, then it's 0
Right, because
or lower.
guys get workouts now because their agent has a connection with somebody inside the building. So it's like, hey, we'll bring him in for a workout. It doesn't mean anything, but we'll bring him in for the workout. I'm like, that's all I need. Get me in the building, and I'll take care of the rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of how it felt with me. But signing with Nicole, she was out in Oakland, and we got together, and it wasn't anything about money. It was about my family, what the NFLPA offers, how I could take care of my family, setting me up for longevity of life and success after football. That was the biggest thing that sold me. You talk about my family, it's like, you know, football, even today, is like football is like the icebreaker, right? Let's talk about football. It's like the icebreaker
Sure.
for people
Sure.
not to be awkward or whatever, but it's like it gets old a little bit, but I realize that it's an icebreaker and then we can start a conversation. But you ask me about my kids, you ask me about my family and stuff like that, and it just like lights up. Same thing
Yeah.
with Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn
Yeah.
Lynch, he hated the media because all they wanted to do was like highlight the negatives and get him to say something and make a sell pretty much sell views off of him. But it's like he didn't want to talk to him. But if you talk to Marshawn about what he does for his community or what he does
Mhm.
outside of football, he'll sit down for hours and talk to you about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Really get
not who
to.
we it's
Yeah.
not who we are. It's what we do, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing is let's talk about who we are
Yeah.
and get down to that.
To recap on that, the wisdom behind finding a good agent is actually work with someone that really is thinking about you long term, especially when it comes
Yeah,
to football. And that's what won you over, is that
yeah,
someone who had the same mindset as you, like, hey, let's make sure your family's okay. Like, let's make sure you're okay, that you can continue on, that it's not this you end up at a dead end, like,
right.
who
Find something
knows
that's going
when.
to be real and authentic. Find something
Yeah,
that's going to be real, authentic, and have your best interests in mind. Not somebody that's if they sound like they're selling you a dream, they're selling you a dream.
for sure. Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah.
it's it's simple. If they're selling you a dream, they're selling you a dream. If they're talking
Trying to
about
light you up for the moment, and once they're done with you, you'll find out real quick
yep,
that who
no,
they are,
hey,
right?
sorry, nobody's calling. That's what happened to me. If we rewind and go back to, potato chip factory days, is I went with a bigger agent at the time. He had bigger names and stuff like. I'm like, oh, he has bigger names, so he'll get me signed. Nobody called and he said, hey, it's better for you to find a different career. And I was like,
Mm,
he sold me a dream, and then when I couldn't do anything for him, he was like, all right, on to the next person. So
yeah.
that really hit home for me, and I was just like, wow, okay, this
Yeah,
is a
that's just
business.
yeah, it's a revolving door, because at first it's like you're hyped as just as much as they're hyping you up, right? Like,
Yeah,
just feeding into it. But as soon as it's done, that door turns, and it's an exit left real
yeah,
quick, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah. And
um,
even picking out schools too, picking out colleges, it's the same process. Go where your heart wants to go.
yeah.
Not where your mind wants, and oh, I can go here because they're gonna give me this money, or these girls, this, that, all the things, all the materialistic things that you see with your eyes, but feel with your heart, and that's gonna tell you a lot. Talk to your family, talk to your loved ones, and you'll know what decision's right for you.
And I think you made a good point earlier. It's not always about the D1. They'll find you if you're good, and you're lined up and
Yeah.
you're putting the work in and you're showcasing. They'll find you wherever you end up, even if it's at a lower D1 or D2 or whatever else, right? So,
Yep.
but like you said, to get a little bit beyond football, man, what really gripped me in your story is just kind of the faith that centers you, man. I would say that you almost have like an iron stomach of faith a little bit, that just, that only happens because of going through stuff, right? It's like we
Yeah.
can't necessarily will ourselves to be able to handle whatever life throws at us. It's life throws it, and we figure it out and keep moving and figure it out and keep moving, and at this point look back and be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, there's been some progress. I've made use of this gift and these challenges that I've been given. So talk to me a little bit about your faith journey. I know you said your mom came back to Christ to make a new environment for you guys to go to New Oxford. When did you come to your relationship of faith, and then how has that grown over the years, leading into like having faith in your brand and purpose meets passion? Like I got a hoodie coming right now, man. So
Appreciate it.
looking
Saw
forward to
that.
rocking
Thank
that,
you,
man.
man.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
yeah,
Thanks for supporting. Um, yeah, so when she moved up, it was funny. My aunt and uncle, they're like super religious, like people that almost think they're Amish, the way they dress and stuff like
sure.
that. So
No
we would go
gambling,
up
no
there,
drinking, no dancing.
no nothing, black vehicles, no radios in the vehicles, no TVs,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like they're playing people, and
Okay.
they're awesome. They've made a huge impact in my faith and my grandfather as well. And we would come up from Baltimore and go visit them. And I remember I can always see still to this day. You come around the bend, you can see it was always in the wintertime near Christmas, and they'd be having the smoke coming out of the chimney and stuff like that. I could smell it, and it was just a different. They lived on a farm, and my uncle John, he just had an impression. He left an impression on me, and I remember going back to school for the first time, writing a paper, and what do you want to be when you grow up? I didn't say a
Mm,
football player. For the one time I said I wanted to be a pastor and a farmer, because that's what he
got it.
was.
Got it. Yeah. So
That
he
was the
was
male role
influencing.
model.
Yeah.
Yes, he was influence on my life. So it was right around then that I would go back home to Baltimore, and I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like pretty much Bible shaming people. No, the Bible says this. Doing opposite of what God wants us to do, to love everybody. But I was like
Tackling people
shame.
for, yeah,
Yeah, I was like
tackling people
shaming
for the
people.
word.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was right around there, and I would say even then, that's when you know um, God was introduced to us, our family and stuff like that. But even throughout my career, we all go through different things, and probably
Mm,
when I tore my ACL, if I look back on it, was my faith at the time as strong as it should have been? Was I
mm,
connecting with God as much as I should have been? I
mm,
would say no.
mm,
It was, I should be playing. I'm better than so and so. I wasn't being very humble about it. No, I wasn't being a problem in the locker room, but it was just conversations that I was having with people close to me. Like, I'm not sure why he's playing. I should be playing. And it was like, hey, you're gonna play this week on defense. And I'm like, yeah, I'm playing. And then I tear my ACL, and it's almost like you have an agenda, and I have an agenda. You know what I mean? And I was listening to Stephen Furtick all the time. That 40-minute drive I told you about, I was just listening to sermons. I had Bo Lowry at the time was a huge man of faith, and we would have great conversations. And I told him, I was just like, "You're like my accountability partner, and you don't even know it." But like, if I don't connect with God every day, or if I don't connect with God and try to have a relationship with Him, or if I feel like I'm trying to do things on my own, I see you, and it's almost like a conviction that I have, like, oh, Bo's gonna ask me about something, and I want to be like, I haven't been in my word. You know what I mean? And so even when you say you're a believer, it doesn't mean that you always have a strong faith, or I wouldn't say a strong faith, a strong relationship with God. I
sure.
You can have a strong faith, but usually faith always comes when hard times, right? And that's why I chose my brand, having faith, and not have faith, because it's easy to have faith when everything's going well, but having faith is something that you got to work on daily. It has to be intentional, and it's a practice. Go back to middle school, elementary school, prior, when you ing, what is that? It's an act of doing. You right? So faith
Hmm.
is an act of doing constantly every day. So that's why I chose having faith.
Yeah, like active, and I like the representation. I think the brand identity is a little bit like you said, active, because and it goes along with you. Like you've always been an active guy, active faith, and faith without works is dead, right? So you
Yeah,
like that relationship is there. It's like it's a realization of those two things combined together. It's like, hey man, even the devil believes in God, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
he believes that he's
yeah,
there. So
yeah,
just cause he's there doesn't mean that we're in alignment. And I understand that too. Growing up, being a pastor's kid, second generation pastor's kid. Grandpa was a priest, Episcopal priest for a number of years, and I think for myself, growing up in the church, I think and you've probably had some of this too. Like you have to come to your own relationship,
Yeah.
because once you step away from it, then it starts being all right. Well, there's a lot of different paths to go. Was I just, if you grew up in a certain type of home, am I just believing it because that's the type of home that I grew up in, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it's true in my heart, but I'm gonna go my own way. And we all have our journeys out to come back in, and when we come back in, it's a lot stronger because it's your own personal choice, right? it's your
Right.
it's your choice, and I believe that that's what God wants for us, right? Is for
Yeah.
the choice for us to be in a relationship with Him, not forced. We're not robots. Our arms aren't being twisted, and whether things, like you said, not just when things are bad, but when things are good too. It's just the gracefulness for when things are good, and then the strength for when things aren't, and then also too that even works out relationships different. Like if we just all had perfect relationships, how connected would we even be with our significant others, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, no, I love that. I love that about your story. I know you had twins in college, and then you ended up having two more kids. So you're a family of four kids.
Yep.
You guys are in Florida now. Free agency. What's the future? What's the vision looking like going forward? I know you're a long term guy, like you said.
Yeah.
What's the next decade looking like for Mr. Harris?
Yeah, God is making me really rep my brand right now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm trying to play one more season, and I'm a free agent right now, so waiting on that phone call. So it's almost like, hey, I'm gonna take you out the same way I brought you in, having faith, right? So
Mhm.
working out every day, staying in shape, staying ready, trying to be here for my family, and 10 years, this is the longest I've ever been with my family without having breaks, OTAs, training camp. I've been with
Mhm.
my family for, since January pretty much, and it's a different type of an adjustment, having dad home constantly. So it's been good, some bad, you know what I mean? Some good, some bad.
Yeah, because everybody has their
It's
routine. If Teresa's holding it down, there's just a usual like flow of the house, and now you're integrating. Like if you're not always
Yeah,
like, hey, I'm catching flights, like because it's always awesome when your significant other holds it down, right? But then now if you're integrating yourself back in the family, like, hey, I'm here more. It's like how do you not get in the way? How do we not get in the way
right.
sometimes, right?
I'm the one that distracts everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey, like we're supposed to be calming down. Dad's wrestling with everybody.
yeah,
Like no, I just got them quiet. It's like I'm the one
yeah.
distracting everybody. Hey,
That
we're gonna get McDonald's for breakfast. No, we're supposed to be doing this for breakfast. I'm like,
it comes from a good place, man. It comes from you have that engine
yeah,
that burns inside of you, and now your family is just getting the benefit of like
right,
dad's energy, better than you being lame and on the sidelines, man. Just being on your phone or distracted or whatever else, like being there but not being there, right?
yeah,
So
right,
good
yeah,
job being active with the family. So um, at this point, always being respectful of your time. I try to keep these pretty tight. There
okay,
is a power three questions that I ask every single guest, man.
okay,
Kind of create some consistency always at the end of the podcast. So, power three here. Question number one is, what is something that you have been learning, looking into? It could be non football related, non mindset. It could be biblical. It could be scientific. Something that, if someone was looking over your shoulder, it might be interesting to them. What's something that Erik Harris has been looking into lately that's an interesting learning recommendation?
um, I've been trying to in a while I'm still preparing myself to play, I'm also in a season of transition as well. So I've been trying to
Mm-hmm.
transition into the real world as well.
Sure.
So trying to educate myself more on um, real estate and how all of that works and stuff like that, and doing different contracts and getting into triple net leasings and stuff like that
Mhm.
with our investors and stuff like that. So real estate for sure is something that has sparked the interest in my mind.
Love that. What I had seen a picture of your guys' fund. What's the fund that you work with? Because I understand that the triple net leasing for like
Yeah, yeah,
Starbucks or Walgreens or whatever else, 30 years
right.
corporate leases, right? What's the fund that you work with or together with that you're syndicated with?
Yeah, the fund is a Bones investment, and Tio Henderson. Her husband played in the league for a little while, and
Mm-hmm.
she's really educating guys. She started with a small group of guys. It's getting bigger, but it's still very family. Her thing is, hey, I'm gonna help you guys make money, but my only thing is, I'm not just going to take your money. You got to learn. Because if you don't learn, I'm not letting you invest any more money with me. Like, you know what I mean? So if you just, hey, here's money, and then you never show up again, then I'm not taking any more of your money. Because if something happens to me, you need to know what your money's doing, where your money's at, and you also need to teach your family and your kids how to do this stuff as well. So
That's
it
amazing.
was my good friend Keith Smith he's a fullback for the Falcons right now, and
Hmm.
I had an opportunity. He said pretty much they had a fun money came over and she said, "Hey, you can either put your whatever you made, your profit into the next fund, or you can bring somebody along." And he chose to bring me along, and that's when I
Mm.
really started incorporating myself more into it. And she's amazing. The whole group is amazing. Um, I mean, I tell Beef all the time, like Beef Keith Smith. I tell him all the time that, hey, like I really appreciate you bringing light to this for me.
Because what it is like I think, like you said, you're coming to the realization like you've had the blinders on, which is required. Like if
Yeah,
you're gonna play NFL, if you're gonna do anything, like it's gonna be at the detriment. Sometimes that's family events. That's a lot of the like the noise, right? It's I think one of my good mentors, Daniel Del Real, always likes to talk about if you can't quiet the bullets, you're gonna die, right?
yeah,
So you got to be able to quiet the bullets like flying around you to be able to navigate and trusting the guys that are around you to move correctly. So I hear what you're saying, which is like it's like as you're getting a season of like, all right, these blinders might be coming off. Now I'm gonna have to direct my focus and energy toward being with my family, taking care of, but also financial literacy and investments and what that look and it's a whole fun world itself. So
yeah,
learning recommendation right now would be investments, financial literacy, thinking long term, like
yeah.
what are some of these monopoly moves that you can make, and once you start realizing that, you're like, oh wow, and some of the safety nets behind when you do triple net leases versus other investment alternatives, like sometimes the
Right.
lower yield, but just long term, it's mailbox
Long
money,
term.
right? Long term mailbox
I'm all
money.
about longevity.
I love it, man. I
Yeah.
love it. Power question number two. So, um, when when it comes to amazing people, I believe that amazing people are always surrounded by other people, and you've had lots of different seasons of amazing people being with you in your life, right? We're all 1 degree away from each other, right? And so, one of my recommendations, and this is my planting seeds for future seasons, is who is somebody, and I know here's the thing, no disrespect to anybody that you don't say, but who is somebody that you would recommend I have on the podcast that'd be a good fit, that you wouldn't mind making an introduction to.
Ooh.
And no disrespect to anybody that's not picked. It's just it's particular to here, and somebody that'd be a good fit for future season. This is planting for future defining success podcast.
Yeah. Similar story to me, or does it matter, or what?
Any genre, anybody, whoever bubbles up at the top of your mind is like, hey, you know what? It'd be cool for him to be on here.
Sheesh. I would
And, and
say,
and if you need to come back to it, man, we
yeah.
can message we can
Yeah.
message
Let's come
privately.
back
I
to it.
like I like
Yeah.
not giving this question to people in advance because I know it always puts them on the spot, and they're like, darn it, Matt, like
Yeah.
I know 1,000 amazing people. Don't make me
I
ostracize
know. I know.
anybody,
Like I'm
but
like, let
we'll
me come back to it.
we'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk offline about that one.
Yeah.
Power question number three is one thing that's been really important to me is that people's stories are inspiring, right? Motivation is inspiring, but actionable tips sometimes are few and far between, right? So, what is an actionable tip that the audience could take today that if they actually applied it to their life, from your wisdom of going through all these different things, what's something that they could apply to their life today that if they continued on for the next month or months, it would actually change their lives?
Hmm. I think the thing I've been living by the past few days or weeks, I should say, is stop telling yourself you have time. Just do it.
Mm.
Right?
Sense
Like
of
I tell
sense of
myself,
sense of urgency.
a sense of urgency. It's just like, just do it. I feel like God was putting on my heart to wake up earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I want to wake up earlier? Because, if I wake up with everybody else and everything's chaotic, then it gets me stirred up. And now, my urgency is level like, get your shoes on, do it. And then I can't be loving. I can't be take a breath. I just need to wake up, before everybody else, do what I need to do, meditate, stretch, drink my coffee, whatever it is, and just wake up earlier and but I was telling myself for the longest time, I'll do it next week. I'll start next week. I'll start eating better tomorrow. Like, stop telling yourself that. Just
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Bonus question behind that. Yeah, I really like that one a lot. Is like I think a lot of people we walk around like we don't have an expiration date, and we also don't know when that expiration date is. So have a sense of urgency about the things you should be doing. Because if we don't really need to be told, a lot of times
Yeah,
you know what you need to
that's
be
what I
doing,
mean.
right?
It's that inner voice of like, all right, I feel convicted. I know I need to do this, but it's okay. Like, I'll just sleep in today, and I'll wake up early tomorrow. Like,
Yeah, or
just do
start it on Monday. Get it started right now, guys. So bonus question, for some reason when you said wake up, meditate, stretch, do you have over the years, because of, having a 10-year career in football, do you have a pretty good recovery routine that you recommend for people, or have you really found doing the sauna, doing ice, what have been some things that are part of your recovery routine that have really actually kept you in the game or ability to recover from these injuries?
Yeah, I mean, massage. I get massages after games. I get in season. I typically get a massage on Fridays, fast Fridays, and then it's
Mhm.
Mondays after the game, more like a flush to flush all the toxins out and all this
Okay.
lactic acid and all that stuff, and just help
Yeah.
promote the body to heal. I have the infrared sauna, cold tubs to bring my legs back, to help with
Hmm.
inflammation and cortisol
Hmm.
levels, and the cold plunge, all that stuff. That's real trendy right now. Um, Obviously, your diet, trying to eat better, eat clean. I wouldn't say I starve myself from a sweet tooth or anything like that. Cravings.
Yeah.
So
And
you have your
you
cheat
burn
meals.
enough to like you take account
Yeah,
of what you need in the tank, but like
it's always funny
low inflammation food.
when you eat pizza and somebody says you're allowed to eat pizza. I'm like, yeah, dude. Like, we eat pizza. Like, we play football, but we also eat pizza. We eat chicken
Yeah.
wings. We eat
Yeah.
fries. Like,
Yeah, you
so
gotta eat.
yeah, just find out what works for you. And the biggest thing is just find out how you can have peace every day.
Mm.
You
That's
know,
yeah,
for
that's what
me, it's like, oh, my body feels good, but I'm off. Something's off. Like,
mhm.
something, I'm disturbed. I'm irritable. I'm tired. I'm fatigued. I'm not very motivated. But I feel good. Like, my body doesn't hurt. But same time, it's always that inner peace that people lack a lot of times.
Yeah. No, well, Eric, I really appreciate you coming on today, man. I think your story is gripping. Having faith is the brand, guys. Go check it out. Really, really cool with the three nails. Eric puts everything behind that, and he's going to continue to do cool stuff going forward, and even beyond that in the investment world and in his personal life with his family. So keep an eye on him, guys. Football, whether he has another season or 5 more seasons left, will not be the end of his story either. So appreciate you checking in with us, man.
Appreciate it, Matt. Anytime I get a chance to share my story and share my faith, I'll take it.
Love it, man. Cool.